Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark Alford's Capitol Recap. I'm Congressman Mark Alford, coming to you live from Cannon 328 on Capitol Hill, the swamp in Washington, D.C., here each and every week from our nation's capital to give you the Capitol Recap of what is going on here, what I'm doing to earn my keep around here and earn your vote next go around. Hey, listen, we've had a busy week. It is Crypto Week on the Hill. Simply put, we're really delivering on President Trump's call to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world. Now, some of you older listeners out there about my age are like, what is crypto? We'll dive into that. It's really the future. So we want to keep cash. We want to keep our banking system. But crypto, we've got to regulate it, and that's what we're doing. So we're going into all the bills that House Republicans are putting on the floor under President Trump's leadership to put us on track, to give some guardrails for the industry that they've been asking for. And we'll be talking in our next segment with the Majority Whip, Tom Emmer. He's on the Financial Services Committee. We'll dive into that a little bit more in detail. But first, let's get into what's been happening here on Capitol Hill. It's been pretty busy on the Appropriations Committee. We are eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. We're restoring fiscal sanity, and we are returning to regular order. We're finding real, substantial savings for you, the taxpayer, in every one of our 12 subcommittees, except Defense, Veterans, and Homeland, okay? We are making some slight increases in those, but it's very important to support our veterans and Homeland Security and, of course, our defense. 2 bills passed the House, the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs, and this week, the Defense Appropriations Bill. It passed this week. We'll get into that in just a minute. So 5 of the 12 bills for appropriations have now passed out of the full committee: Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, Defense, Agriculture, Homeland Security, Legislative Branch, Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development. And we were really proud to get the defense done this week. Take a listen, because of Wednesday night of this past week, I got up to debate at about almost midnight, and here's what I had to say.
It's good to be here on this late evening to do important business for the American people, and I rise in strong support today of H.R. 4016, the Defense Appropriations Bill before us, not just as a matter of policy, but as a matter of preparedness. Together, we can ensure that our men and women in uniform and their families have what they need when they need it. Right now, our small caliber ammunition stockpiles are not where they need to be. This is unacceptable. This bill makes critical investments to fix that, Mr. Speaker. It ensures we are getting the necessary rounds back into the magazines of our service members, whether they are training at home or deployed in harm's way. Let's be clear. Asking our troops to be ready to fight tonight without basic tools to complete their mission is a risk that we are not willing to take. This bill prevents that from happening. But it's not just about restocking. We're also rebuilding our industrial supply base so that we are not relying on adversaries or unstable foreign markets for the things that make our military work. This means we must continue building batteries for our most complex weapon systems right here in the good old United States of America. We must push forward with the most important technological edge we have in modern warfare, including the B-21 Raider. The B-21 is not just another aircraft. It is the future of our long-range strike capabilities, a 6th-generation stealth bomber that will reaffirm American air dominance and serve as a political, powerful deterrent to rogue regimes and near-peer adversaries alike. The threats we face today, from the Pacific to the Middle East, are not theoretical. They are real. Our adversaries are evolving, and they are not waiting for us to catch up. This bill helps us stay ahead. It ensures that the American people and the American military remains the arsenal of our democracy. And above all, it supports the men and women who wear our country's uniform and stand ready to defend this nation each and every day. Let's take a quick look at this next poster, and it will show exactly what the Democrats would be voting against for the F-26 Defense Appropriation Act. They would be voting against a pay raise for American troops, border security investments to counter drug trafficking, voting against investments for critical ships and aircraft, against modernization of America's nuclear triad, against missile warning systems and technology, against next-generation U.S. weapons system, against increased stability for service members and their families, against training and equipment for an agile, capable force, against supporting the supply chain production, against deterring the Chinese Chinese Communist Party and foreign adversaries to prevent taxpayer dollars from funding abortion travel. Mr. Speaker, for their sake, for our sake, for the sake of our great nation, I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this bill, to deliver on our America First agenda with President Trump, and to stand firm in our commitment to peace through strength. Thank you. I yield back.
All right, next, let's talk about rescission. All right, we're continuing to work through the White House's rescission request, which is really just a bill to codify some of the DOGE cuts. Not a whole lot right now. There's going to be other rescission packages. This one's for about $9 billion. The Senate recently stripped cuts to PEPFAR. That is the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. It was created in 2003 by President Bush. It's been a big success story. They stripped the cuts out of the bill, which I was in favor for. I was kind of fighting for it on the House side. It's $400 million. The good news is that in the Appropriations Committee, the National Security, State, and Related Agencies Committee, which I sit on, we adopted a provision to require the State Department now to come up with a plan to phase out PEPFAR funding, get it off the American taxpayers and back where it really belongs with other nations. Listen to my remarks in the committee about what PEPFAR is and why it really matters. Listen to this. I, for one, am very proud of the work that we have done on many issues in a bipartisan manner for this bill, particularly when it comes to PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, one of America's most impactful global health initiatives. Launched in 2003 by President George W. Bush, PEPFAR marked an historic commitment to combat HIV/AIDS, the largest by any nation to address a single disease. With over $110 billion invested, PEPFAR has saved more than 26 million lives, provided antiviral treatments to 20.6 million people, and prevented 5.5 million babies from being born with HIV. It has supported 83.8 million HIV tests, 327,000 health workers, building robust health systems in more than 50 different countries, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. Programs like DREAMS have cut new HIV diagnosis among adolescent girls by up to 40% in targeted areas. Beyond HIV, PEPFAR has strengthened global health security, aiding responses to other diseases which threaten our national security. Our subcommittee plays a critical role funding PEPFAR through annual appropriations, and we must ensure that funding continue to protect these gains until we can wean the programs off the American taxpayers, and we are doing that through this bill. That is why we are directing the State Department to develop a clear country-led transition plan that will empower partnering nations to sustain programs aligning with local health systems and global partners like the Global Fund. This ensures long-term success without reversing the decades of success and progress that we have seen. PEPFAR embodies American compassion and leadership. It strengthens our global security and our diplomacy. So I encourage this committee to continue to work together to guide a responsible transition plan to save lives and secure a healthier future. Mr. Chair, I yield back. Here's what else is happening right here in Washington, D.C. A big win for President Trump when it comes to the Supreme Court. They ruled that his plan to close the Department of Education and return power to the states can go forward. A big win. We've been pushing for this. It's not just a win for President Trump. It's really a win for students, for parents, and the future of our great nation. Before the Department of Education was created in the 70s, we were number one in education. And since that has happened, we're now number 28. Really, education is most successful the closest it can get to the people, can get to you on the local level. And that's exactly what Republicans and conservatives are working to deliver. I do want to talk a little bit about the Epstein files, the controversy on that. You know, for years, including my last day as a TV news anchor at Fox 4, when I signed off the air, I said the only thing that matters is truth, and that's what I've been trying to deliver for 23 years there. And I still believe the same. That's why this is so important that we get this right when it comes to the Epstein files. So I urged Attorney General Pam Bondi to responsibly release any files that they have that's going to bring some transparency to this issue. We deserve the answers to what is inside the Epstein files. Now, the problem is that it's turned into a real sideshow, and I think it's going to end up tarnishing the legacy of President Trump, and we don't need that. So let's just get the truth out there. We can handle the truth. The administration really has to provide the complete and total transparency that you deserve, that I deserve. Even Laura Trump, President Trump's daughter-in-law, says that this needs to happen. Okay, when we come back, we're talking with the Majority Whip, Tom Emmer from Minnesota, talking about cryptocurrency. You won't want to miss it because, yes, it does matter to you. Crypto is the future in a lot of ways. We'll tell you why it matters when we come back. You're listening to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone, to Mark Alford's Capital Recap, where each week we take you behind the scenes in Washington, D.C., the swamp, to give you kind of an idea of what's going on, as well as in the great district, the 4th Congressional District of the great state of Missouri. You know, before we went to break, we're talking about in the headlines Crypto Week on Capitol Hill, a very important week. And one person who really made this happen is our Majority Whip, Tom Emmer. He's kind of an expert on crypto. He's been involved in it for some time. We're really excited to talk with him now in his office on Capitol Hill. Whip, good to see you again.
Good to see you, neighbor.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have neighboring offices over in Cannon. You've been a longtime leader of crypto policy, a top advocate for really making sure the U.S. leads in crypto. What is Crypto Week all about?
Crypto Week is about innovation in America. It really is about making sure that all the investment in the 21st century technology that is transforming how we relate, communicate with one another, transforming how we do our banking, how we do deals together, etc. Crypto Week's about making sure that we finally have some clarity in this area so people don't go elsewhere. I mean, over the last 4 years in particular, Mark, there just was no understanding of what regulator you had to go to because unlike the system that has been built, right, the existing two-tier legacy banking system, I'll just start with that one, you don't have a definition for digital assets when it comes to cash. What is cash in digital assets? Bitcoin? Is it, tokens? What is a commodity? And what is a security? And why is that important? For your listeners, it's because we have these prudential regulators, whether it's the SEC, which deals with securities, or the CFTC, which deals with the commodities, or the Treasury that deals with cash and others. When you were doing business before this week that we're into and what President Trump has called for, you don't know which one you were going to deal with, which regulator. And in fact, every single one of them was claiming you were within their jurisdiction. So it was frustrating innovation in this country, even though we still have significant innovation. It was frustrating the amount that we could have because people don't want to come in not knowing what the rules of the road are and not wanting to spend all of their resources on legal fees dealing with the federal government. This will solve that problem in large part.
Last term, I was on the Ag Committee. I know Dusty Johnson was instrumental in writing one of these bills. We have the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, and then yours, the CBDC. We'll get into that, the central banking. But the Ag Committee has the oversight of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which oversees the commodity sector of this. And what I heard in the testimony from people who came forward is in this industry, we just want some guardrails. We want to live within the system and the rules and regulation and oversight that the federal government sets forth. Just tell us what the rules are.
That's exactly right. I mean, FTX, which put a stain on the entire digital asset community, occurred in large part, Mark, because we didn't have the rules of the road. We didn't have this built where people knew with certainty what they were going to get when they started a new opportunity here in this country. So then you have a scam bankman fraud down in the Caribbean doing this old Ponzi scheme with digital assets. President Trump promised that he's going to make the United States of America the cryptocurrency capital of the world. The Clarity Act, which you're correct, Dusty Johnson, your chairman, G.T. Thompson, you and then others in the Financial Services Committee. This is the market structure bill that was literally a collaborative effort by these committees and a lot of members. The other bill that they're doing is the Genius Act, which came over from the Senate. A very simply described, Mark, that is dollar-backed stablecoins. Why is that important? It may not have as significant an impact domestically, although I think it probably will. I think our banking community, I think our financial community will find a way to really get involved in that. But the bigger thing for me is we are going to be exporting U.S. dollars all around the globe. That cab driver down in Brazil would like to do business today in U.S. dollars, can't. With a dollar-backed stablecoin, he will now be able to do that. That woman in Africa that doesn't even have access to the traditional financial system, guess what? With dollar-backed stablecoins, she can now access financial resources. So that's huge. And then, of course, the third one that you brought up, Donald Trump said on his campaign trail, if I am your president, we will never have a central bank digital currency. It's something that I've been involved in now for probably 6 years. I was doing this before it was cool to do this in our party because we had Republicans who were literally advocating for a central bank digital currency 5-6 years ago. Why? Because we were falling behind China. They had a digital yuan. We don't want to be...
What did they use that for?
Well, it's a surveillance tool. They are literally building scores on their citizens based on their purchasing habits, their consumption, and these are social...
Their criticism of the government?
Exactly.
Their social score.
And by the way, there are stories that came out when the Wuhan flu hit. There are stories that came out that if you were in China at that time, they just shut off your card, Mark. They would only turn it on when you had permission to go to the grocery store. You didn't have the ability to buy a plane ticket out of Wuhan. You didn't have an ability to pay for a hotel room because the government controlled all your cash.
So this is one of the biggest fears, I think, for our district, our state, our nation, is that we were headed down this direction. This law, once it's signed into law by President Trump, will prevent that. The Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, has said we're not going that direction, and yet there are indicators that they were actually moving towards this direction.
Yeah, well, Jay Powell lost me when he was telling all of us, he was telling the Senate too, that we are not moving towards let's back it up. The Biden administration, they said a central bank digital currency was imperative, that it was urgent. We had to get this done. Why? Because you got people like the senator from Massachusetts, who shall not be named, that is all about central control. They don't want Mark Alford and Tom Emmer doing business together without the big arm of the government dipping into our transaction. This future that we are starting to go into, Mark, is a complete decentralization of the controls. You don't need these big top-down central control government regulations because you know what? Mark Alford and Tom Emmer, on some things, might want to just do business directly, peer-to-peer. That's what this is going to allow. And the central bank digital currency thing, you're correct. It's more than just the surveillance tool. You realize that a central bank digital currency would effectively destroy the existing two-tier banking system because you wouldn't have a need anymore for the traditional family-owned large banks, whatever it is. So at the end of the day, it's important. And Jay Powell, he was moving towards it.
Yeah, he was. The guy's a snake.
In fact, they said it was one of their key responsibilities. That guy should be gone.
He should be gone. Hey, before we go, and we don't have a lot of time left, to the average person listening to this broadcast or this podcast, they're like, this is kind of a foreign language to me. I mean, I'm just learning about this, and I've been on the Hill now for 2.5 years. This and AI, all these new technologies that are really going to be the future of what we deal in as an Americans and in the world, in the marketplace. Why is this important to the average listener right now?
Well, you're younger than me, so maybe this doesn't apply to you, but in my experience over the last decade, and because I have 7 kids, ages 24 on the young end to 34 on the high end, it just has become very clear to me that if you're 18 to 40, maybe a little bit more, you grew up inside the internet. You process information differently. You're not afraid of this virtual world. If you're like me, I still like a book.
Yeah.
I can feel the pages in my fingertips. I wish I still had the radio that I could push the buttons on, right? we're more traditional. So, and here's the other thing that I found from these two different groups. If you're my age and you're in crypto, it's probably because you're making money. You're investing to make money. If you're these kids, they're doing it because they want to make the world a better place. And what I would say to the listeners that are in my world, be open. This is a very simple thing. Where literally what you have going on, it's not about crypto for me. It's about the next iteration of the web. They call it Web3. So I call it the ownership economy. What does that mean? You will no longer need an intermediary to do business. Right now, if you're a young aspiring songwriter, singer, you put your content on a platform like YouTube. And by the way, you only derive income by selling advertising directly to that site. In this new world, you can put your music into an NFT and you can put it out on the internet, and for pennies, people can access it. And guess what? If you suddenly go viral, as the kids like to say, you're the one making the money.
I love it.
That's
Capitalism.
totally decentralizing and restoring power back to you. And
I love it. Whip Emmer, thank you so much for being with us. Folks, if you want more information, we'll have plenty of this on our website, alford.house.gov. Be sure to follow us on social media channels at Rep Mark Alford. You know how to spell the name, hopefully. Hey, it is so good to be with you again this week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me be your voice and your vote in Washington, D.C. And remember, folks, I believe in you. I believe in America, and I still believe, Tom Emmer, that our best days are still ahead of us. Good day, and God bless.